Bom dia! A partir de agora você está em Conexão Legal. Eu gostaria de agradecer você de casa que ingressou no nosso site, em todas as nossas redes sociais, que compartilhou com a gente a sua opinião, que falou a respeito dos nossos programas, que entrou lá no YouTube, deu lá um joinha pra gente. Aliás, nós estamos com mais de 70 mil horas de vídeo no YouTube, então você fica convidado a acessar todos os nossos programas através dos nossos canais aqui de redes sociais, nossos canais pela internet. E também aqui pela TV Justiça, que você pode nos ver todo domingo às 6 da manhã e numa reprise terça-feira às 4h30. Então, não se esqueça, vá lá na internet, faça o seu cadastro, dê sua opinião e também concorra ao livro da semana. O livro da semana é o do David Harvey, O Enigma do Capital, e eu tenho recebido vários e-mails pedindo para repetir esse livro. Então esse livro fica aí para você de casa, sabendo que já é a terceira vez que ele vem ao nosso programa, então é o terceiro livro que nós estamos colocando para ser sorteado, tá? O Enigma do Capital, do David Harvey. Então ingresse lá no nosso site e esteja com a gente também pela internet. O nosso programa hoje vai tratar de um assunto muito bacana, é a questão do direito comparado, mas essencialmente trazendo ao nosso programa Dr. Brent McBurney, que é advogado e CEO, ou seja, presidente de uma entidade de direito civil internacional e de direitos humanos chamado Advocates International. Inclusive fica aqui o site da Advocates International, que está aparecendo no nossa tela, para você de casa poder conhecer um pouquinho mais da entidade que o Mr. Brent coordena no mundo inteiro. São mais de 100 países em que essa entidade está presente e ele, muito gentilmente, recebeu aí o convite e aceitou o convite para vir falar no nosso programa. Então, a partir de agora, nós vamos fazer essa entrevista em inglês e você aí de casa depois acompanha a tradução no YouTube. Tá? A tradução não vai estar aqui na TV Justiça, mas vai estar no YouTube. Então, ficamos aqui com o Mr. Brent e a partir de agora nós vamos só tratar em inglês. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me.
Bom dia.
Enjoy. Oh, very good. Bom dia. Welcome to Brazil and in our studios
Obrigado.
here in IDC. And congratulations for your entity, for your organization.
Thank you.
I heard very good things about it, and I would like to discover a little more about Advocates International. Can you explain for us, please?
Great. I'd be pleased. It's my pleasure to be here with you today, and back in Brazil for my second time. The first time was 21 years ago.
20 years ago.
Yes, but it's my honor and privilege as the president and CEO of Advocates International now to travel around the world and work with lawyers and judges and law professionals. Advocates International was founded in 1991 by Dr. Sam Erickson. He's a Harvard lawyer. He was the former executive director of the Christian Legal Society in the United States. And following a trip to the former Soviet Union in Russia, he met some lawyers there and felt that there was a need to further encourage and equip and enable lawyers in other countries to, what we like to say, do justice with compassion.
Very good.
And so he left the Christian Legal Society and founded Advocates International. At the time in 1992, there were about 10 or 12 countries who had Christian lawyer fellowships. The oldest is the Lawyers Christian Fellowship in the UK. The Lawyers Christian Fellowship was founded in 1852, either 51 or 52. The Christian Legal Society in the United States, the Christian Legal Fellowship in Canada, and the Christian Lawyers and Students Fellowship of Nigeria was one of those, but only about a dozen or so. Today, after 23 years of working with lawyers around the globe, there are 120 countries that now have Christian lawyer fellowships of varying sizes. In some countries, the fellowship are 2 or 3 lawyers only, because they're Christian minority countries. and others. The largest fellowship is in Nigeria with 5,000 members who are active and engaged in their country, fellowship with one another, and also engaged in the public square. And so what we try to do, based on Acts 1:8 from the scriptures. Acts 1:8 says, my spirit will come upon you, and you'll be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. Okay. And so the way we see the work of advocates, we use an acronym in English, LORD, Lord.
Lord.
And L is for local. And that's, we encourage lawyers to meet locally. And so that's Jerusalem. Jerusalem is where you live locally. Here, Sao Paulo. Mm-hmm. That's the local. And then the O is organize nationally. And so we encourage the local groups to come together in a national group to further encourage one another and to have more of an impact than just at the local level.
And support themselves.
And to support one another. And then the R, and that's Judea, Jerusalem, and then Judea. Judea is the national. Mm-hmm. Samaria is the regional. So we encourage the national fellowships to cooperate in regional groups. And today there are regional groups all over the globe. There's an Advocates Latin America, North America, Europe, Asia, Africa, and Oceania. And so each of those are made up of national fellowships.
Is globally.
Yes. And then the D is for discipleship, and we disciple globally. So my role as president and CEO, I work with the leaders of the regions. So I work with the leadership teams from each of the regions. They then work down on the national level. Then the national level then work with the local level. And then the local leaders, of course, work within the local level. So we're trying to encourage, equip, and enable advocates to do justice with compassion. And how we do that is in seven primary areas. First, religious freedom. That was the primary reason that Advocates was started, was to help fight for religious freedom for all faiths. And then we have rule of law.
When you talk about religion freedom,
yes,
we are talking about to protect people.
Right.
Because in some places, this kind of fights
right.
can orange disputes very, very bad.
Yes.
Our problem, our time it's a little short because we have a little interview, but we are come back with this issue.
Sure.
Você de casa, não se esqueça. Nós estamos continuando aqui com uma entrevista com o Dr. Brent McBurney, que é CEO, presidente da Advocates Internacional. Então você de casa, fique com a gente até o próximo bloco. Olá, retornamos aqui em Conexão Legal. Hoje temos o prazer de receber nos nossos estúdios o Dr. Brent McBurney, que é CEO da Advocates International, uma entidade global que congrega advogados no mundo inteiro para desenvolver uma série de ações e até mesmo de propostas para o melhor da sociedade de forma geral. E ele no bloco anterior estava falando do objetivo dessa entidade. Então vamos acompanhar agora a entrevista dele e ele vai concluir justamente esses objetivos. Okay, Mr. Brent.
Yes.
We're returning in our program, and I would like to speak with you about the religion because it's really serious.
Yes.
In Brazil, we have no this kind of problem because our country is very, very good in this aspect. We can live with other religions with no problem.
Yes.
We are very, very good to do that.
Yes.
But in some places, your organization can fight.
Yes.
And can face some problems very bad, no?
Well, you're right about Brazil being very good.
Yes.
When it comes to religious freedom, the Pew Foundation in the United States is a group that compiles statistics, and one of those areas is on religious freedoms. And the statistics that they have discovered, they have unearthed, is that 3 out of 4 people living on the planet today, 3 out of 4, live in countries with high or very high restrictions on their religious freedoms. Another thing that they have discovered is in terms of restrictions on religions, Brazil has the least restrictions on religions. Number 1 in the world.
Yes.
But 3 out of 4 people live in countries where you have very high or very high restrictions. And those come in 2 forms. You either have governmental restrictions or societal restrictions. Sometimes in countries, say Albania, when Albania was a dictatorship, it was almost exclusively governmental restrictions. If you were found with a Bible or a Quran, you would have a 20-year sentence to prison in Albania under the dictator Enver Hoxha. Now, the same is going on in North Korea now.
Yes, yes.
Kim Jong-un is very, and there are countries like that where the restrictions are almost exclusively from the government. Now, the societal restrictions come...
But in North Korea, it's not because of the religion, it's because of the system.
It is because of the system, exactly.
Yes, because they believe much more in one people than... they transform one people in God,
Sure.
literally.
Sure.
No?
The leader is God
Yes,
in their
yes,
country. So,
yes.
People who are enemies of the state can be any religion that's not worshiping the leader.
Yes.
So now on the societal side, you have certain laws that may not be enforced, but because the laws are enforceable, society will take the law into their own hands.
Yes.
And so that's what makes the high and very high restrictions on people's religious freedom. In India, for instance, there are laws on the books for anti-conversion. And you cannot convert from one faith to another faith. They're not enforced very broadly, and yet they give the people the right to enforce it themselves with mob violence. And so the law in certain states of India require that if you wanted to convert from Hinduism to Islam or Christianity, for instance, the law requires that you notify the local officials in your community 60 days before you're going to do that.
Yes.
Well, how do you know when you're actually going to change your faith?
Yes.
So they haven't really enforced that law specifically. But there are mobs of people who don't want people converting away from their faith to another faith.
Yes.
And so they will then take matters into their own hands.
And normally, mainly in India, if you belong to one part of the state, the poorest one, you can't change.
Yeah.
So, if you was born in one religion, you need to die in this religion. You can change your aspect of it, spiritually speaking.
Exactly.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
And within Islam, you have apostasy. The apostasy and blasphemy laws. Pakistan is probably the worst example currently of the blasphemy law. If you blaspheme the Quran or you blaspheme the Prophet Muhammad, you can be sentenced to death in Pakistan.
Yeah.
What happens in Pakistan now is neighbors are accusing one another of blasphemy. If I like your property, all I have to do is accuse you of blasphemy.
Yes.
And the court case begins, and then you're thrown in jail, and then I can come and take your property.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, the legal system there is facing major problems. I understand about 6 years ago, one judge dismissed a case, and a mob killed him. So now none of the other judges want to dismiss their cases. And so the defendant shows up in court, the accuser doesn't show up, which is unique because you would think that if you're going to accuse someone of something, that you would at least show up in court. And yet the accusers realize that if they go to court and swear that they can't tell lies, so they don't show up because they know that their accusation is false.
Of course.
But the courts simply put off the case, and they keep putting off the case, month after month after month. And so nothing is being done about that, justice in Pakistan. and other countries where blasphemy and apostasy laws are on the books. So religious freedoms are very, very challenging. And in Pakistan, it's Christians, it's Ahmadis, Hindus. Anyone is a target for the blasphemy laws.
Yes, and we have a lot of tribes. Origin, there were like brothers, but with the time they start to a process that became in a very big fights between them because they can live together. And so after that, after Second World War, they put all these tribes together. And how can coexist together, because they never live together. So it's really difficult to do that only by a pen. You put people together, not because they want to be together, but another people by a pen declare that they have to live together, like a country, but they never were a country. It's difficult. Just a minute and we return. Você de casa, continue conosco aqui em Conexão Legal. Não se esqueça. O livro da semana do David Harvey, O Enigma do Capital. Esteja com a gente aqui. Ingresse lá no idc.org.br, faça seu cadastro e concorra ao livro. Até o próximo bloco em Conexão Legal. Olá, você está em Conexão Legal. Esse é o terceiro e último bloco do nosso programa. Eu gostaria de agradecer você de casa que esteve com a gente em todo o nosso processo. Não se esqueça, se você perdeu qualquer um desses blocos, ingresse lá no nosso YouTube ou até mesmo na nossa página e você pode rever na íntegra o nosso programa. Hoje estamos recebendo o Dr. Brent McBurney, que é o CEO do Advocates International. E a nossa entrevista está se dando em inglês, então você no YouTube pega a tradução. Mr. Brent, the problem with the religion is very serious. And your initiative to get attorneys together to try not only changing the law, but changing society, it's very good. Wonderful idea. But we know our people in general are facing a terrible times right now. Not only because this kind of restriction, but because of the capital restriction, because of the crisis, because of the problems in general. How your organization are seeing this kind of thing in the world, and how Brazil is included in this view?
Thanks. Well, one of the ways we like to work, we like to think of the work we do as building guardrails. So if you picture a cliff, and on the top of the cliff is a country where problems are happening, and people are being pushed off the cliff, those who are being persecuted. And there are three responses that you have. The first is to go to the bottom of the cliff and help the people that have been pushed off the cliff. And that's an absolutely necessary and vital work that many organizations are doing, helping those people who have been pushed off the cliff. The second response is to go to the top of the cliff and expose the country through the media, for instance, and say what you're doing is wrong. And the governments don't like that. They don't want to be exposed for what they're doing. The third response, which is what we try to do and what we try to encourage our lawyers to do, is to come alongside the government and say, look, there are people being pushed off the cliff. We want to help you build a guardrail so that you look good and your people aren't pushed off the cliff. So how can we work with you? How can we come alongside you? How can we work with you? How can we help change your laws? How can we change your culture? In some countries, it works. In other countries, it doesn't. But our effort really is what we would call track 2 diplomacy. which is really behind the scenes, to build those guardrails so that people don't continue to be pushed over the edge of the cliff. It's a rescue process. No? It is a rescue process. Oh. There are others who will rescue those who are at the bottom of the cliff. And some of the lawyers who are engaged with us are engaged with those as well. But we try as much as possible to not shine a light in a negative way on what's happening on the top of the cliff. Because when you shine the light like that, you're expelled. You can be turned away completely. And that's no good. So we try to work to build the guardrail with the government, to work.
But in sometimes it's impossible because the government, it's the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But if we're able to work
this kind of problem, what the organization can do, or
well, one of the things we've been working. Albania is one of the countries that we've been working in for the entire life of our ministry. For over 20 years, we've been in Albania, helping the judiciary of Albania. Are you familiar with the term telephone justice?
Yeah.
So you know that within many of the communist countries.
Explain, because I am, but
well, in many of the communist countries, in Albania and specifically, no matter what level you sit as a judge, within your chambers as a judge, you have a telephone and you have a line that goes directly to the party boss at your level. And every Monday, you pick up the phone and the local party boss says, "Who's on your docket this week?" And then you compare notes and he says, "This one's guilty, this one's not guilty, this one's guilty." That's telephone justice. Because we hosted the Chief Justice of the Albanian Court of Cassation, the Supreme Court of Albania, and 5 of his colleagues in 1995. And we met with Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. And the Chief Justice, through the interpreter, asked that question. He says, when you have a very important case coming up, what do you do when the president calls you? And she looked at him and she looked at the translator and she said, "Can you ask him that question? Is that really the question?" And he said the exact same thing, and the translator said, "No, that's his question." She said, "That would never happen. That would never happen. The president never calls the judges. Yeah. The judges are independent."
Because it's in normal country, it's unthinkable.
And so one of the things that we've been doing over the life of our work is helping to build an independent judiciary. Because when you have judges who can make a decision based on the law and not based on the pressure from the executive pressure, or the parliament or the Congress, any external pressure,
including society pressure.
Including societal pressure.
Yes.
And so we've been working with the judiciary in Albania. One of my board members has traveled to Albania, I think, 50 times now over the last 20 years. And he is well known amongst all of the judges and as well as most of the parliamentarians for his efforts to help the Albanian judiciary become an independent judiciary and not be controlled by the purse strings or the whims of the parliament in that country. So that's one of the ways that we work, is trying to really help develop independent judiciaries. And that's something that happens on a governmental level. In the United States, we take an independent judiciary for granted sometimes, because our country just celebrated 238 years, I believe, as a democratic republic, and it hasn't always been, perfect, but over the course of our country, we've managed to fight back corruption.
Yes, it's an eternal fight.
Yeah,
unfortunately, here in Brazil, we face this kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's terrible. But I would like to say thank you for being here with us and can share these things so important, not only for Brazil but globally. And it's a thing that humankind need to think about and improve themselves to better.
Yes.
To good thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
To have you here.
Thank you.
And next time in Brazil, please come back and it will be a pleasure to receive you here.
Thank you. I'd like to share this with you.
Very good.
This is a devotional readings. These are written by lawyers for lawyers.
Oh, good.
So
Thank
weekly,
you.
52 weeks. So it will help you with your English
Okay.
as well as your spiritual.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Thank
You're
you
very
again.
welcome, yes.
Thank you. Você aí de casa, não se esqueça. Se você não viu nenhuma parte desse programa, ou se você quer ver na íntegra, ingresse lá no idc.org.br ou através do nosso canal no YouTube. Tenha uma ótima semana em Conexão Legal.